Hello guys, welcome to the answer writing session. So here we will look at one question and then we'll also discuss the answer for that. Remember, this is a revision session, so I will not be able to completely discuss like what we do in the class. So let's get into the question directly. Yes, as you see here, the question is, Merton introduced the much needed reform in the functional understanding of society. Evaluate the statement in the light of limitations of Parsonian framework. So here, this is a very straightforward answer. I don't think that you'll be facing any problem. So you have learned about Merton very much. So you can talk about, Merton's contribution, right? So you can talk about the functional postulates, three functional postulates. You can talk about his idea of middle range theory. You can talk about his concept of anomy. You can also talk about manifest latent function. You can talk about the functional paradigm he gave to bring up with a proper theory, right? And you can also talk about the limitations that we discussed when we discussed about Parson, that illegitimate teleology, the problems with grant theory, and all those criticisms you can discuss here. And how Merton improved our Parson also you can discuss, and why middle range theory is more practical than the grand theory which is proposed by Parson. All these things is going to be very simple. So you can say start with Parson and then talk about a couple of criticism and then come to Merton. That will be the right way to approach this question. So you can talk about structural functionalism by Parson, views society as a system of interconnected parts functioning together to maintain stability. So here, if required, if space is there, depending upon the demand of the question, you can bring in that moving equilibrium concept and how equilibrium is maintained, or you can talk about that metrics AGIL model that we discussed and the interconnectedness and everything. And then you say Parsons' framework faced criticisms for its emphasis on equilibrium, harmony, universal functionality, which overlook the other dimensions like conflict, dysfunctions, and alternative social arrangements, right? So when we discuss about Merton, you will see function on one side, dysfunction also on the other side. Manifest function, manifest dysfunction. Latent function also will be added here, and latent hidden dysfunction also will be discussed in detail here. So all those things are what you're supposed to discuss. So Merton refined the functionalist analysis by addressing these limitations and introduce the concepts like manifest latent function, functional alternatives, right? And then middle range theories, functional paradigm that we have discussed, and the three postulates we have discussed. All these you can mention, and you can say Merton is considered to have introduced neo-functionalism. So that's a different version you can say. Okay, so let's talk about Parsons' limitations, Merton critique, and Merton's proposition. So step by step we can discuss. In fact, we covered this in detail with I think 3 sessions we spent on this. So here in this 10 minutes, we'll quickly go through that. But one by one we'll take. You can start with functional unity assumption. So what's the assumption of the other functionalists like Radcliffe Brown, Durkheim, Parson? Since the question is asked about Parson, we stick to Parson. So Parsons views all part of society work together harmoniously for the systemic stability. But what is the criticism? So he, just 1 minute. So Merton's criticism on that is, in a highly differentiated society, functional unity is not necessarily guaranteed. For example, religious pluralism in a society that can create division rather than unity. So his proposition is, functional unity must be empirically tested rather than you simply assume that it is functional unity is there. So institutions can exhibit functional autonomy where changes in one institution do not necessarily disrupt the others. Okay, so that's Merton's proposition. So we will be discussing all these concepts, and then you talk about universal functionalism. That's the other assumptions of functionalist. So if you look at Parsons' view, every social and cultural form has a positive function and they are universally functional, right? So again, Merton criticism is that this assumption is also naive and which is completely incorrect. And he highlighted that the phenomena could be functional, it could be dysfunctional. If functional in one context, it could be dysfunctional in other context, or it can be non-functional in some other context. Functional means doing some function. Dysfunctional means it is dysfunction. It's a conflict. Non-functional means neither function nor dysfunction, just there, that's it. For different groups, right? So it can be functional, it can be dysfunctional for other group, it can be non-functional for some other group. For example, poverty is functional for the wealthy, right? So as it provides cheap labor. So when you see from the perspective of the upper class, poverty is good because you'll get the cheap labor, but dysfunctional for the poor, right? This acknowledgement actually integrate the conflict and inequality into the functionalist analysis. If you see, so he's talking about, universal functionalism is not true. He's talking about, functional indispensability is not true. That's the next one. So Parsons views certain institutions like family, religion are indispensable for society because it's a fulfill certain function and nothing can replace that. But Merton criticized these functional prerequisites can be met by alternatives, functional alternatives. Family, for you talk about the function of family as taking care of age, one of the function for that. Old age homes are there. Then socialization, for that education system is there. So Merton talking about functional alternatives. For example, communism can serve as a functional alternative to religion in maintaining social cohesion. So this view, if you look at it, it challenges the rigidity of Parsons' AGIL framework, right? Where specific institutions are seen as indispensable, which is fulfilling certain vital functions for the survival of society. So here, if you look at it, Merton talk about functional alternative, new concept, right? Because he is challenging the functional indispensability. So again, if you look at overemphasis on grand theory, that's again the problem with Parsons' approach and face illegitimate teleologies, the rounded, concepts. So his attempt to construct the this complicated theory. So the grand theory led to, too much of abstraction and detached from any kind of empirical reality, which is not testable or anything. So Merton instead proposed middle range theory. So he proposed focusing on, smaller testable theories that bridge empirical evidence and theoretical abstraction and ensure practical relevance. So if you look at Durkheim theories, it's almost like middle range theories. So that's what the Merton's propositions. Now, if you look at the contribution of Merton, so you can talk about, the concepts of dysfunction, right? So normally we will be talking about functions, universal function, functional indispensability. So now you talk about dysfunction, you talk about non-function and taking balance between that, net balance. And then functional alternative, right? Manifest function, latent function, manifest dysfunction, latent dysfunction, functional paradigm, middle range theory. All these you can write, okay? So manifest and latent function, right? Manifest is the intended and explicitly recognized outcomes of the social action. Very clear. Latent, it's the unintended and the hidden consequences. So subjective predisposition and objective manifestation. So we discussed this in detail with the example of corruption and other things, right? So if you look at slavery, the manifest function of slavery as the American South was to boost the economic productivity, right? Its latent function was to reinforce racial hierarchies and elevate the status of whites. So it's functional for whites. And again, if you look at integration of conflict and dysfunction in his analysis, that is adding another dimension. So Merton recognized that the institutions might not always contribute to its stability. It could be negative for some group. It could be non-functional for other group, right? So dysfunctions like poverty or inequality that can coexist with functional elements. And that's actually offering a balanced or nuanced understanding of the societal processes. Now, again, if you look at empirical focus that he is giving through the middle range theories, when you talk about grand theory, there is no question of empirical reality, right, or testing. And there are other theories which are too elementary. So Merton is talking about it cannot be too elementary. It cannot be too abstract also. It should be in the middle range. So you are avoiding the speculations of grand theory. And he proposed or he emphasized the bottom-up approach that's grounded in empirical research and making the testing as possible and everything, right? And even if you want to make grand theory, combining couple of many middle range theories, you can do it. In that case, the grand theory that you are making will be testable also. So I'm not saying that Merton is averse of grand theory. No, he is also talking about grand theory, but it should be testable how it is possible. Make it a combination of middle range theories. That's how you need to make the grand theory. So that in that case, it is going to become more adaptable and will be more relevant to the sociological inquiry. Now, what's relevant to contemporary society if you look at it? So this refinements which is done by Merton, in fact, help to analyze the complexities of modern society, economic inequality. So poverty It's dysfunctional for poor, but remains still functional for capitalist in sustaining the cheap labor force. Slavery, just before I've explained. Again, if you look at technological disruptions, the gig economy that we are talking about now, right? So it's promoting flexibility. It has latent dysfunctions, like the question of job insecurity and the lack of social security benefits. Right, again, various social movement, if you see, the protest movements may appear disruptive on one side, but it serves the latent function of fostering the systemic reform. So these are the new dimensions which has been incorporated or introduced by Merton, which significantly contributed to sociology. So towards the end, in conclusion, you can talk about that contribution. So Merton's changes, the proposals, the reforms, the postulates, or all these concepts address the critical gaps in not only Parsons' entire functionalist approach, the structural functionalism, by introducing the new concepts. Talk about that again, right? The dysfunction, non-function, net balance, manifest latent functions and dysfunctions, right? And middle range theory, the functional paradigm. All these, because of this, Merton is called as father of neo-functionalism. So he recognized the complexity of societal functions, the interplay of dysfunctions, and the existence of functional alternatives. So all these have been identified, and by incorporating the conflict and the empirical understanding through the concept of middle range theory, Merton actually made functionalism more relevant for analyzing modern, diverse, and stratified society, and gave a practical view for sociology by proposing the middle range theories. So his contribution, of course, remain indispensable for any sociologist who's seeking to balance the theoretical abstraction and the empirical reality. So he proposed you cannot go too abstract, you cannot go too elementary for search of empirical reality. It should be middle range. And he proposed a functional paradigm. Check out that. That will be another question. Either we will discuss it as another question, or it's already given in the note, that 9 steps that you need to follow when you are conducting a research, identifying the middle range item, specify the context, and then subjective predisposition, objective manifestation means latent function, manifest function, latent dysfunction, manifest dysfunction, propose the alternative, and then the net balance. So that's how you'll be making a theory and all those things. So guys, that's about this session. Thank you so much for attending. So if you like the video, share it with your friends also. And in case if you're looking for any sociology course, mentorship program, or the test series from our side, check out the details in the description and get in touch with us. So see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.